Hey guys, Ben and Dave back at Roseanne's kitchen table, and I've noticed a couple times, we've been doing a lot of shows together, and there have been twice in the last month or two where you've actually changed my mind on issues in the middle of a show. And then once you said that that's the type of thing that actually never happens. Never happens on cable TV, where someone actually sort of changes their opinion or actually hears something, right? Because that's what nobody does on cable. Nobody's hearing. They're just talk.
There's never been a moment on cable news where the one person said to another, Dave, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. Those words have never been spoken on cable news. You'd think with maybe a billion hours of arguments theoretically about ideas, our previous segment established, I think, that they don't talk about ideas, but talking about issues.
Right.
That at some point you'd think, oh yeah, because all the time it happens to me.
Yeah.
I'll come in and I'll have an opinion, and Cenk and I used to argue a lot, and more often than not, I felt like I think, yeah, I guess that is right. Or it'll turn out, oh yeah, I didn't read that. I didn't know that.
Right.
Everybody knows everything.
Boy, so we're pretty fantastic that we are willing to accept that we don't know everything.
Oh my God, I'm so dumb.
That's a gift.
Right.
So I think that one of the things that we were debating about that you kind of changed what I was thinking was during that whole immigration thing, and I was saying how the executive actions, that this isn't sort of how it's supposed to work. And you kind of laid out why they've all done this, and I knew that actually Obama hasn't done that many executive actions relative to other presidents. The part that I was coming at it from was that I want the system to work the way it's supposed to work. I still have this belief that the system should actually work with branches of government doing what they're supposed to be doing. And you kind of had a little more of, I guess, a realistic or a realist's view on that. So my question is, how fucking broke is the system, and what the hell can we do?
It's really broken. It's very broken because one side doesn't really want to participate in it. I mean, and whether it's because they hated this particular president, they did, and there's definitely some strains of racism that existed here. But keep in mind, they impeached the last Democratic president, right?
For a blowjob. Doesn't that seem...
Right.
In retrospect now,
they made the guy who got a blowjob from an intern in the Oval Office the most popular president of our time, right?
Yeah.
If they just left him alone, I think he goes out, with a low approval rating and unable to get things done. But they couldn't resist themselves.
I think you're gonna make a sex joke there somehow. He goes out with a low. There was something.
That's right. Low testosterone.
Yeah.
It is incredibly broken. But that said, these guys aren't interested, the right is not interested, a big part of the right isn't interested in governing at all. It's a strange world where we now look to the guy who was reelected as speaker today, John Boehner, and think, that's a guy we can deal with. Right? But it's true. At least John Boehner likes politics, likes the process of government. I like the process of government. And so just to put a stamp on your immigration point, I like that we're like, hey man, I got to get something done, and you guys aren't going to do anything, so I'm going to govern.
Right.
I'm going to govern. I like governing, and it's ugly, and so yeah, it's not exactly how we drew it up, but it's almost never been how we drew it up. Television has helped advance nothing
in
the area of ideas, and although I couldn't live without it.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's it's the idea thing that we were talking about before. We don't have the debate about ideas, but also there's something about that the system just can't move that much, right? Philosophically, the system can only move a little bit one way or the other, ultimately, right?
If Cenk were sitting here, or any one of a number of people who believe that the biggest problem by far, the elephant in the room, the herd in the room, more than the elephant in the room, is money in politics.
Yeah.
And that money, which was always important, you always raise money, but freshman congressmen now who have been scolded by members of leadership of their own party when they're seen at lunch having lunch, being like, hey man, take a sandwich back to your office and get on the phone. You're raising money 70% of the time. That's what you do. I am certain that congressmen in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s and prior to that had to raise money. There's no way they had to raise money like this. There wasn't this much money at stake. K Street, it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Guys would leave Congress, they'd lose, and they'd go home. They'd go back to Kansas. They'd go back to Milwaukee. They'd go back to Seattle.
Whoa, wait. Are you saying that they didn't all immediately get $3 million a year jobs on Wall Street like Eric Cantor?
They didn't just...
That wasn't always how it worked?
With all his non-Wall Street experience.
With no experience whatsoever?
Right, but he has the contacts. He has power. And so I suppose that I now, I believe that to be right, that we get money out of politics in whatever way we can, that is a big step toward rectifying the situation. And the Wolf Pack, the Young Turks Pack, has been incredibly successful. They're 3 states now. I imagine once they hit 9, 10, 12 states, that those moneyed entities are going to be like, now we need to pay attention. And
right.
Now we need to start, because the legislators who voted for it in those states, they didn't receive huge pressure from the Kochs of the world not to. That money will come, and that pressure will be exerted at the state level.
Right, so that's the interesting part. So of course we need money out of politics. So there are things that are happening, not just Wolfpack, but there's a bunch of things that are happening to either get a constitutional convention or whatever it is to change some of the laws. But
the real way to do it is to change the Constitution.
Right.
To amend the Constitution.
So to your point, though, now it's at 3 states. So let's say it gets to 9. Then the system, that's what I'm saying, that then the system will be invested in protecting the system.
That's right. Yeah.
And I sort of fear what they do when
ultimately,
when
if there's a real groundswell of support, it'll happen. But it is really hard to when when we saw the Koch brothers spend money like on the Kansas State House races that nobody cared about, and that where a typical race might have $20,000 or $30,000 spent, and all of a sudden they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, those candidates all won, right? Because if you have people who can effectively deliver a message, and we've learned that the right can effectively deliver a message. It's not a message that's good for the country or good for the people who are literally supporting it, but they can do it effectively. If you have $300,000 and the other guy has $1.80, there's a really good chance the guy with $300,000 is going to win.
On that note, can we change the system? Can we get money out of politics? I have no idea, but I kind of hope so. Let us know in the comments right down below.